Hiya, I'm Anna and welcome to September's Art Club. This month we're going to be tackling a little river themed project. Well, it's river themed for me, but you could adapt this to anything that you particularly liked. We're going to be making these little strip maps, and this is part of the River Collie. This is what I've been doing. In order to do this, you are going to need a source document to work from. So I've got a Google map that I have printed out of the River Collie. Which is the river that we're working on at the moment, but you could choose absolutely anything. You could use an Ordnance Survey map, you could use an atlas, you could use whatever you've got lying about. The important thing is you want some countryside on it, preferably the more interesting the better. So what were you going to need for this? You're going to need something waterproof. It could be anything from a pencil to a biro to a fine liner pen or a dip pen and some ink. You're going to need something to put some colour on over the top, and again that could be absolutely anything you've got to hand. It really is up to you. So let's get started. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do to make our little strip of map is I have actually printed out a little Google map here of the River Collie, which is the river that we're working on for our project at the moment. And it doesn't really matter, you could choose any bit of countryside you like, maybe something that's important to you, but at the moment, because we're working on the river actually runs through this wonderful little tree-lined avenue all the way down here. So what I'm going to do is just pick a bit of the river that I like and draw a rough line around it. If you haven't got a printer, you could trace it off a map. You could look on the internet and draw a rough approximation. It's all good. It doesn't need to be incredibly precise because this isn't about precision, this is about the feel of the thing. So I've now got a rough idea of where things should be, and I am going to just draw this on by hand. So I've got my line there of what will actually fit on my little bookmarky thing that I've got here, and the river is going to go like that. What else have I got in my square? Let's have a look. So this is it's quite a good exercise in working out what you're actually drawing here if you haven't done this sort of thing before. So I've got a line of field going up here. There's a little path that goes there. There's a field there. I've got a field here. I've got the corner of a field here. You could always do this with a grid if you feel nervous about doing it freehand. And the path goes across here. I've got tree line coming up here in this little field. That field has got this rather interesting, looks like a tractor. And that is, again, you could trace this. It's absolutely fine. That goes round there. Oh, it's a tricky bit, this bit. That goes about there. But, you know, approximations are fun. We've got some little farm buildings there. I'm just going to put in the roofs because that's all you can actually see here. And then that goes round there. There's a big tree. There's another big tree there, sort of there. So we've got that bit coming down there. Let's just check I haven't made a complete pig's ear of this. That's another field. Is it all one field? No, it's two fields. Look at that. You could simplify this as well. Okay, that's roughly what I want. The important thing is the line of the river running through the middle. You've got loads of time to muck about with this with pencil because the idea is that after you've done the pencil line, you're going to put in some ink on it. Now, I've got a fountain pen, a dip pen here, rather, which is it's got quite a bendy nib, so it's quite a flexible dip pen. Equally, you could use any kind of black ink, blue, whatever colour you like really, but it has to be permanent. So check it with a little bit of water first, just to make sure that you don't have something that's going to run like crazy as soon as you start adding any water or colour to it. Now, oops, we've splotted already, that's a good start. I've got some India ink here and I'm going to decant, it's quite old India ink, so it's quite gloopy. I'm going to decant a little bit of it just into a yoghurt pot here, just because I don't want to risk tipping over the whole bottle. It's bad enough if you tip over a yoghurt pot full, trust me. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to start thinking about what I need to put in. So I've got my yoghurt pot. I've got my ink. Oh wow, that is glue. Oh dear God. Right, okay, that is really gloopy, but it's fine. We'll just go with it anyway. You can see I've already made a pig's ear of this. Good. Don't want you thinking that artists get it perfectly right all the time, do we now? So okay. Wow, that is so messy. As I say. So I'm just going to put in some little sort of trees here, and this is the path of the river. That is a very big mess. It's another building. And this is the point where if you have got something wrong, you've got time to kind of fix it. So before you start your pan there, do a little bit of rubbing out, a little bit of tidying up. I quite like putting in the bigger trees, because when we were doing the river project, oh, has that even reached the ink? Let's have a look. The big trees really attracted me. I kept finding myself going up to them and stroking them, because, you know, they've been there hundreds of years, some of them, and it's really rather amazing seeing these incredibly old trees when you're wandering along the banks of the river. I'm putting in the fields like this. I'm fully aware as I do this that I am not as accurate as I could have been with this, but I'm going to just focus on the shape of things and not worry about it. Right, okay, so we've got a riverbank down here. There's this little area, the wooded area here, so I'm going to... We've walked quite a lot of the collie now because of the project, and it's quite a lot of it is completely inaccessible, and I think that's true of a lot of rivers at the moment. You can't actually get to them. Part of the reason for that, though, is because there is this incredible thicket of trees going on, which is quite nice, because it did mean that things like kingfishers had a really good opportunity to have a little bit of peace and quiet. Right. Path. Incredibly gloopy ink. That's a big field, isn't it, there? But that's fine. I love how sometimes on these overhead maps, if you've had a really big drought or anything, you can see all sorts of things on the map that you wouldn't normally be able to see, like old burial mounds and stuff like that. I've got a little tree there, and on the corner there as well, and then we've got it going down to this wonderful tree line bit here. There's a lot of trees. You can just about see the river in places going through the middle, so I had to put in a little bit of river. You could spend a lot longer on this than I am going to today, because it's quite a nice thing to do, actually. A little section of your own, maybe a bit that means something to you historically, somewhere where you grew up, or a particular place where you like to play with your kids. With hindsight, I should have brought some cleaner ink. I'm not actually in the studio today. I am drawing from home because it is Devon Open Studios, and one of my lovely colleagues is in the studio teaching today. So I am a kitchen table artist, which is how I started out in the first place. And what you can't see is an elaborately rigged gantry of bits of wood and other things that have balanced my phone above the art so that I can draw this for you without the whole thing rattling. I'm quite proud of it actually. Yeah, there we go. Now, what I love best about the fields in Devon, what I love best is actually the furrows in the fields, and you can see some of these in here where farmers have mowed them. There's a good one here actually. So what I'm going, oh my god, I've got that on the kitchen table. Good, excellent. That's going to go down well. It's a good job my table is very, very old. I am going to hide that underneath what I'm doing. There we go. Nobody will ever know. There is already a lot of ink on this table, to be fair. Okay, let's get a little bit more of this. Okay, so I'm going to put in some of these. You can't see them very well, but oh my, that is so blobby. Never mind. The nice thing is it's really sunny outside, so in a minute I shall pop this outside on a bench to dry. Because that is really important when you're working with base layers of ink like this. You've got to make sure they're dry, otherwise you're going to end up in a big pickle. I'll put a little roof bridge there. I'm putting a few more little trees. And the farmyard. If you've got road names, I haven't actually got any roads in this section, but you can see there's one, I don't know if you can see, there's one coming down here. You could add the road names in very carefully along the road. You could also add in the river name, which I may do just here. Maybe here. River Collie. There we go. I don't know what that farmhouse is called. I could put that in. Don't know. It doesn't say. Oh, even more ink on the table. Perfect. Right. Okay. I'll use some of this giant reservoir of ink that I've managed to make here. Put in some more. So that's one way of actually dealing with. If you have done a bit of a splot, you can soak up some of that ink with the nib. Just picking a little bit of it up. But remember, there is always another layer to put on top of things like this, unless you really like black and white, in which case you may not need another layer. Let's see if I can do all of this one. Any other fields with interest? Oh, that one's got some interesting markings on it. I think I'm going to have to give it a really, really good shake. Nothing but the highest quality art materials, obviously, here. That's better. This is the reason this is so gloopy is because it's last year's teaching ink. So every year I buy a new bottle of ink. And this is why. This is why. There we go. And any other fields I want to put in? That one's got some lines in it. I shall put some in there. Okay, right. This is going to take some drying because it's quite splotty. So what I'm going to do now is put it out in the sunshine, and we'll come back to that once I have allowed it to dry. Okay, so having worked a small miracle on the table and got the ink off, top tip by the way, if you ever find that you have got something like India ink on things, don't go in there with the hot water. It sets the ink into whatever it's on. Cold water is your best friend here. Soak it. It's much more likely to come out. Can't promise, but it will definitely help. Right, so what I'm going to do, I'm just going to get some kitchen roll and then I'm going to start tidying this up so we can add colour. Okay, so we've got our little bit of river here. I've checked, it is absolutely bone dry, she says, thinking no, it's not. What's that then? Okay, no, I think it is dry. Because if you're going to rub anything out, which I'm about to do, the last thing you want to do is rub it and the whole lot smudges. Now, if you've used like a fine liner pen or something for this, that is a lot less of an issue because they dry almost immediately. But still, worth giving it just a moment just to make absolutely sure. Now, I've used watercolour paper for this, but again, there is nothing to stop you using whatever's to hand. You could do this with card and use coloured pencils, or you could use, I don't know, anything really. You could even do it on fabric if you had some ink pens or something like that. That could be a lot of fun. There are a lot of pens now that will comfortably draw on fabric. Make yourself a wall hanging. You don't have to do it in this shape either. I have done it in this shape because I'm a big fan of bookmarks at the moment. I've been enjoying making quite a lot of bookmarks, and for me, the idea of having a little bit of river as a bookmark is rather fun. So let's roll up the sleeves, and now we're going to think about painting. Now, in my original picture, the colours are really not all that, are they? They're not that exciting, but you know what? That's absolutely fine. We can always bring some excitement to them. Devon has fantastic soil. The soil here is red. That is not really doing it justice. So that's a very dry field, I think, there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring out some of those colours. I've got my old travelling palette here. This was just a bog standard, who made this? Dale Rowney, I think, and it had pans in it, and as the pans gradually got used up, I ended up squirting paint from tubes into the pans, which is why it looks like some of them have been scoured out and some of them have been added to. I am not a big fan of pan paint generally because you do end up with this. That's not going to come out now. No, it's not. You end up with this happening. So that was a purple that I don't use very often. Obviously I scoured it out until it looked like a polo mint or something, and now it's just got a hole in the middle. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to start putting in, thinking about what I want to do. I might put in some nice little bit of green on this field. I'm going to go in darker over the river bits itself. But the nice thing about this is it's kind of up to your imagination, really. You can put in any colour you like. If you've got some in one place, it's probably not a bad idea to add some in another place. So I've got 2 patches of green here that I'm going to put in. Just like that. I am deliberately leaving gaps around the edge because what I want to do is allow things to dry. So let's have a look and see what else we've got. Light red is a great colour around here where I am, and where you are the soil may not be these sort of colours, but here we've got a lot of this sort of colour going on, so I'm going to really bring that out. And for these 3 fields I shall use this. I'll put a little bit of yellow ochre just in this big field just to break it up a bit. And I think if you want a really nice texture, something like a watercolour paper that's got a bit of a dimple is quite a nice thing. So a rough paper or a knot paper, which is the one that I'm using at the moment, which has got a little bit of a dimple to it, so that the paint or the ink or whatever you're using sinks in a little bit. Even with coloured pencils, you'll get more texture if your paper is a little bit gnarly. Let's mix a green for that one. So I'm going to have some, should we go springy green? I like a bit of springy green. And let's make this big field nice and springy green. I still use this palette. often than not when I can't find any of my other palettes because I've left them in the studio or whatever. But it just goes to show that actually you don't need a great big fancy thing to make paintings. I'll put some more in down here. I'll put this nice light green. And then I think we might have some yellow, because you get yellow on the fields at 2 times of the year here. Once when the farmers kill off the previous crop with their sprays, these things happen I'm afraid, and the other one when the crops are ripening. So let's assume we've got some lovely ripening crops and we will put them in here. Partly because I don't want the writing to show through, so I'm going to go for a pale, nice pale colour there, and I'll put in some more over here. That's a ploughed field, but it's fine. We'll just maybe this one as well, which was green on the original, but never mind. We will not. I'm going to have a bit of fun with this. Okay, so I've got a few nice colours going on here. Now I've got to think about what other colours there might be. Always tempted to have fields of lavender at this point, but we don't really get that around here, so I think I probably won't. What I am going to do is mix a different green, a dark green now. A little bit of Prussian blue mixed into the sap green will give me a really, really, really deep green. I could do the river with that. But if I'm going to do the river with that, I think I'm going to have some of it down here as well. I'm leaving little white boundaries between each of the fields, and the reason for that is very simple. I don't want the colours to run into each other, and if I don't leave the boundaries, they most certainly will. We'll put that one in as a deep green as well. Here we go. I'm using quite a big brush, as you might have noticed. That's because I always use a big brush, but it has got a very fine point on it. The reason why I use a big brush is because you can load it with an enormous amount of paint, which means you're not constantly toing and froing from the palette, but you've still got that ability to get those fine details. If you have got a little skinny brush, you absolutely could use it for this. But really anything with a good point on will work really well. Now, I think, well, the other thing I want here, I've got browns, I've got golds, I want a really yellow, a really nice warm, a bit of cadmium yellow. And I think I'll put some of that on the end. Oh, that's a nice colour. Pop that on there. We'll have some more of it down here. You can always layer colours up as well, which is quite fun. So for example, I could put greens over the tops of other greens to make interesting colours happen. And to give things a little bit of depth. Okay, getting there. And I think, just looking at it, how am I going to balance that up? Something else in that top last corner. Light green, that light green that I used. Ooh, stop moving. There we go. So, before I start putting in the trees and the little details of the buildings, this needs to dry, because if it doesn't, what will happen is colours will bleed into other colours. Now, I don't know if you've ever made that mistake, but what happens is you end up with a bit of a cluttery mess, really. I don't think it actually hurts to leave white bits on something like this anyway, so I'm going to let this dry and then we'll go on to the next last little bit of painting. Okie dokie, so we're at the kind of final stage now, and as you can see, that's lovely and dry. There's one tiny spot of wet right in the middle of a field, it's going to end up looking like some sort of important ancient burial mound, but that's fine. Now, details, I have got smaller brushes, but I'm not going to use them because, as I say, good point on a brush is all you need. Now, my trees, I'm going to start putting even more blue into a green. So I've got a really nice deep green, deep bluey, shadowy green. Let's see if I can mix something up that I like. That's quite nice. Let's start putting on a little bit of the trees here. And now, because I know that the paint around them is totally dry, I don't need to worry about accidentally making a pig's ear of it. I think it'd be quite nice to put some of the trees on. You know how you get shadow on one side of a tree and not the other? So what I'm going to do is mix up, put some darker colour on here, and then I'll put some lighter colour on some of the other sides, just to give it a kind of slightly three-dimensional feeling. Oh, it's very nice and relaxing. It's a nice way to spend an afternoon. This would make a fantastic present, maybe for somebody who has moved away from an area or something like that. Just a little thing to remember. Right, so I've got some of my trees going on there. I've got building roofs, so I'm going to paint those in just with a little bit of grey. You could do all of this with a with pens. Be absolutely fine with pens. There we go. I'm going to put in a little bit of road. I think that was probably, do I want to do it with brown? Maybe. Putting some of these bits around the edge. I will put that probably in just a little bit of this very neutral colour, because they're just paths and things like that. And then I'm going to mix up some green just to do the other bits of the river with. So this is just a slightly lighter one, just to make this a little bit more interesting. I should have done a bigger bit because I'm really quite enjoying this. And really you could spend as much time on this or as little time as you wanted, because you know, you can go as large as you like. You could do a whole page. It's kind of fun making your own map, isn't it? I think we're just about there though. I think I am going to stop there because, no I'm not. No I'm not. I always say that. I think I'm going to stop. No! The reason why is because I want to just make that building look a little bit more. There. That's it. That's it. And there we go. We've got a little tiny section of the River Collie just to take away. And there's lots of things you could do with this, as I said, but I think for me I'm going to use it as a little bookmark. Okay, so that's it for this month, and I hope you've enjoyed painting along with me today. If you've made one of these maps, I'd be really interested to see what it looks like, and even better, if you've made one of where I live, near the River Collie, I would very much like to see it. Do send me a copy. Look out for October. We're going to be doing birds in October, and I will see you then. Happy painting!